The Iran war just created a giant hole in the sky. Video by Dylan Page. I don't think I've ever seen a Dylan Page video before, so let's watch this. I hope it's a good one.
Oh, since we last spoke, the world now has a 3,000-mile continuous war zone. The conflict in the Middle East has opened up a giant hole in the sky. There are now reports of US military commanders telling service members that Trump has been anointed by Jesus to cause Armageddon in Iran. The Supreme Court in America has ruled that AI material cannot be copyrighted, and Trump is beginning to turn on US allies over the war in Iran. All of that and so much more. Do not forget to subscribe because these are some of the most important news stories we've spoken about in a long time. So, let's stop the yapping and let's go! Yeah! So, kicking it off today, we've got a lot of updates from the war, and as you can see, these colors do not change until the war is over. Starting with the sheer scale of what's become the conflict in the Middle East. Now, I don't know if many of you guys
The thing is, I don't even know why this whole thing started. I just know like a little bit of it. Why can't everyone just get along, bruh? Yeah. Why can't everyone just get along? And also, if you're actually fighting, why can't you just go on private servers and fight? Why do you have to attack people that are on other people's servers free roaming? If I'm free roaming on UAE servers, why am I getting attacked? You know what I mean?
But the world now has a 3,000-mile continuous war zone. If you currently look at the map and you tracked all of the countries that are now either being dragged into the war in one form or another, whether they've been targeted by Iran or are actively involved in the attacking themselves, you could technically start at Cyprus, and it stretches all the way down to Pakistan and Afghanistan, who last week declared an open war. So Cyprus, all the way down to the edge of where India starts. That's 3,000 miles plus of continuous war zones. That is crazy. Now, I heard this originally from journalist Richard Engel from Sky News, and he explained it very well.
There was now war from Israel all the way to India.
For perspective, that is a longer stretch of distance than the entire width of the United States. And I mean, to clarify, this doesn't mean that every single one of these countries are an active battleground. But all of these nations and areas, they have been under some sort of alerts because of the conflicts in the region. I mean, we're seeing numerous countries, including the UK, Spain, France, starting to prepare evacuations of their citizens from a lot of these areas. Bro, and they said that 2026 was going to be the new 2016. Bro,
1916.
Maybe 2036. Moving on. Oh, and guess what? Because this war is developing.
UK, what? Huh? Yeah, did you not know that? I think UK is like a big contender for the war. If the war happens, UK is a big contender.
Developing so rapidly, since I recorded that last update, the 3,000-mile war zone may have just extended for the first time into Asia. Bro, we're unlocking new parts of this damn map every day. So, 87 people are dead and dozens more are missing after a US submarine sank an Iran Navy ship with a torpedo in the international waters off the coast of Sri Lanka.
Wait, what did he say?
And dozens more are missing after a US submarine sank an Iran Navy ship with a torpedo in the international waters off the coast of Sri Lanka. Now, really important point, that is the first time America has sunk an enemy ship with a torpedo since World War II.
Sure, dude.
It's never great when you're breaking World War II records, is it? And if you guys want to understand where Sri Lanka is, this is roughly it. Alex is showing you an image. Everything from the 3,000-mile war zone usually stopped around here, you know, the edge of Pakistan. Now we're entering the Indian Ocean territory, Asia. Now, this was confirmed by the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who then hinted that, quote, many and more larger waves are coming. We are just getting started. Now, 180 people were reportedly on that ship. So 32 people have been rescued, 87 have been confirmed dead, and the rest are still missing. But it doesn't stop there, because on the same day, we actually had a major escalation as well, because NATO officially got involved for the first time after a member state, it appears, was attacked, or at least targeted for the first time. So according to Turkey's defense ministry, NATO air defense systems had to shoot down an Iran missile that was traveling towards Turkey's airspace. Now, a fragment of a preventative missile has fallen into a southern area of Turkey, but fortunately for the escalation of this war, there was no loss of life or no injuries reported. Because just imagine if there was. A NATO member sustained death or injuries from this conflict, boy, we could be talking about something very differently today. Now, since then, Iran has actually come out and denied that they targeted Turkey. Now, some are claiming that this attack may have come from Hezbollah in Lebanon, but the claims, we don't have any confirmation yet. So we don't know if it's Iran, we don't know if it's Hezbollah. It's got to be one of them, right? Also, a NATO spokesperson came out and they said that they condemned the Iran's targeting of Turkey, so NATO believed that it was Iran, and that they stand firmly with their allies. And Turkey's defense minister said that we reiterate that we reserve the right to respond to any hostile direct attacks against our country. Now, this is believed to be the first, and let's hope last, involvement that NATO has had in this war. Wild stuff, but let's continue with the updates. Moving on! Also, another point that I don't think many people have realized is the economic fallout coming our way. Because this war has now created a giant hole in the sky. And we are going to be paying the price. Literally. You see, if you open Flight Radar today, which is something only niche individuals do, you will see something pretty astonishing. A giant hole where one of the world's busiest aviation crossroads, key point, used to be.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this was happening due to the Russia thing as well. So it's just to be safe, right? Am I wrong?
Several countries have entirely closed their airspaces, causing thousands of cancellations globally. It's caused major disruption at airports, as I mentioned earlier. Thousands of people have been stranded in the Middle East trying to get home. And crucially, and this is where it's going to affect us most majorly, is there is a sharp increase for the airlines who are now having to take longer routes that obviously burn up more fuel. And also these routes are a lot more congested, causing delays, cancellations, just chaos. And I mean, if the prices go up for airlines, they're pretty kind souls, aren't they? They would never, I don't believe, pass down the cost to the customer. They'll just front the bill, won't they? Yeah. But it's not just a hole in the sky that's bound to make a hole in your pocket. There's also now a hole in the ocean too, and a hole in my heart. God. Because, similar to the airspace in the Middle East, there's now a giant gap where one of the world's busiest oil shipping lanes used to be, the Strait of Hormuz. You've probably heard that name a lot over the last few days. And that is because not only does a staggering 20% of the world's natural gas and oil flow through this tiny little corridor, which Iran technically owns, so yeah, but also 34% of the global fertilizers, which obviously affect crops, large amounts of methanol, pharmaceuticals, and many more. So a lot of disruption.
But did he say meth? Oh no!
I did hear the latest just before I was about to record. Guess who is being allowed to kind of ship through there? China. So China's chilling. The rest of us are...
Because they have ties with Iran.
Billing. We're paying... Sorry. Alex, save me by cutting that one out. Now, not only did Iran close the Strait of Hormuz, but they actually vowed to attack any ships that are not China that are trying to pass. As a result, as many expected, the price of oil and gas has sharply risen and will continue to do so as long as these holes exist. And it's not just oil and gas. The price of many things, broadly speaking, will rise because once the cost of oil and gas rise, inflation, and as I mentioned, many other things. In fact, some experts like JP Morgan are predicting that oil could reach $120 per barrel. Right now, it's about $80, which is still quite high. And that could happen for the first time in years. It hasn't been $120 in years. So the big important question is how long? Because the longer it goes on, the worse things get. Well, Trump revealed for the first time last night that the U.S. military initially expected this war to last around 4 to 5 weeks. Now, he did say we are ahead of schedule. However, he also did leave the door open by saying,
we're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay, whatever it takes. We have capability to go far longer than that.
And I mean, predicting the length of a war is kind of like predicting the time or the cost of building something. It always stretches past longer than you expect. You think about the Ukraine war. Most experts and analysts said that it would be over for Ukraine in a couple of days, maybe weeks. 4 years later, still fighting. And I mean, thinking about it, if it was 4 to 5 weeks, we've only got 4 months before the World Cup kicks off. And one of the host nations is at war with Iran, which is participating in the World Cup. Will they still participate? There will almost certainly be economic fallout from that. You know, when Trump initially announced these strikes, he said this.
But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future. And it is a noble mission.
But right now, the future is looking pretty expensive. And it was already expensive before this.
The thing is, I feel like
not great. Moving on. Also, other updates on this.
I just feel like countries that like US wouldn't have a problem. Countries that are in the middle, which is not really caring about the war, which is like not part of NATO, not Russia or US, not friends with Iran. There's a lot of countries that exist like that, wouldn't have a problem. The countries that would have a problem that are in the thing and also doesn't have money, which is some Middle Eastern, not all Middle East countries, but some Middle Eastern countries.
Or is the very interesting divide that we're now seeing between the countries willing to get involved and those drawing that red line. Because Donald Trump has been harshly critical of the countries who are not immediately supportive of the US operations in Iran, specifically, and the 2 countries that he's most kind of cracked down on is Spain and the UK. Last night, while speaking at a press conference at the White House, Trump ripped into Spain for their uncooperation and even said that he is cutting off all trade with them. He said, we don't want anything to do with them now. And this was actually in response to Spain denying US forces access to use their bases to strike Iran. Now, on that point, he did say something that I was like, whoa, when I watched it. He said they didn't need Spanish bases, but you know, if they did, they could just fly on in there and use them because no one's going to tell them not to. Play clip.
Spain
How?
actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it.
Now, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez made it pretty clear on X that Spain rejects the unilateral military action by the US and Israel, and that they call for de-escalation and full respect for international law. In response, Trump said this.
Like Spain has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain.
But he did kind of contain this to the Spanish leadership, and he said that the people of Spain, they're great.
Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership.
But the US and Spain, that's one thing. But the US and the UK, that is a whole nother relationship, because the question is now being asked, has the UK still got America's back when shit kicks off? Well, Trump doesn't seem to think so. This week, he actually publicly criticized Keir Starmer, saying that he has not been helpful at all and that he never thought he'd see that from the UK. He said, we are certainly not in the times of Winston Churchill, giving a throwback to World War II when kind of the real bond of the US and America was really forged. And he went even further, saying that it's very sad to see the relationship is obviously not what it was.
They ruin relationships. It's a shame. It's
But technically didn't. Everyone's asking for like escalation of the thing. They're not going against you.
UK, and I love that country. What they're doing with energy and what they're doing with immigration is horrible.
Now, that is a pretty big thing to say, because over the last 80 years plus, through multiple wars, they became some of the closest military allies on the planet. You know, the UK was described by the US's own Congress as America's closest and most reliable ally. So close, in fact, that during World War II, they even created a formal joint command body, essentially creating this 2 militaries, 1 brain effect. Like, you've got to be so freaking close to kind of, and obviously they've got huge shared values and culture, but this time around, Trump told the Sun newspaper that, quote, all other countries like France have been great, while the UK has been much different. Now, Keir Starmer responded to this by telling his government on Monday that he does not believe in regime change from the skies, and his chief secretary said that the UK will only commit British armed forces when there is a legal basis to do so, and when it is in the interest of our country. Now, they haven't been completely reserved. They initially said, the US, you can't use our bases, but then they said, yes, you can use our bases in Cyprus. And now they're even deploying a warship to go and protect those bases. So it's not like they're completely reserved, but it's certainly not what everyone would expect. But I mean, the big question is, what do you guys think? Is it good that the UK isn't following the US into
think it
every
is.
war?
Just stay
Or
away
is the
from
UK
war.
slowly losing ties with their most powerful military ally? Let me know your
No,
thoughts
I feel like they're just losing ties with Donald Trump in general.
in the comments, but we've got a lot more updates. Moving on. Okay, this next one is pretty surreal, and there's a lot more that we could talk about with it, but let's just give you the top line. So according to a recent complaint by a non-commissioned officer, US commanders are allegedly telling their troops to not be afraid of the war in Iran because it is part of God's divine plan, and that Donald Trump has been, quote, anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire
That
in
is
Iran to
crazy.
cause Armageddon and mark Jesus' return to Earth.
That's crazy to say.
Bro, just war alone is enough for us to deal with and try and fit in our brains. Are we really now talking about Armageddon and Jesus' return before GTA 6? Now, this is according to a Nobel Peace Prize nominated foundation called the Military Religious Freedom Group, and their purpose is as a watchdog to monitor religious rights in the US military. Now, they claim that they have received over 200 calls from more than 50 military installations across all services, and they say that they were reporting similar announcements from their commanders. So essentially, they're suggesting that this may not be one or two commanders saying these sorts of things, but it's a widespread rhetoric. And
Such a
obviously, this
dumb
opens
thing
up
to
a very
say, though.
serious question of how much of this war is being fueled or justified by religion. How much of religion is influencing this? And I mean, on all sides, you know, we've got the US, we've also got Israel and Iran. Let me know your guys' thoughts, but for now, next. Now, on top of all of that, we could see yet another escalation in this war in a matter of days. CNN
Wait,
are now
why?
reporting that the CIA are working on a plan to arm opposition groups and the Kurdish leaders in Iraq, which are obviously neighbors to Iran, so that they can have boots on the ground and start an uprising and disempower the Iranian regime. Now, this is according to insiders familiar with the plan who spoke with CNN. And they also report that Donald Trump has been in direct communication with one of the opposition groups, specifically the president of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan. Now, if this does turn out to be true, it's currently believed that a ground operation will be launched in western Iran in the coming days with support of the United States. So yeah, obviously, if that does happen, that's significant because it's not just, you know, attacks from the sky, it will be boots on the ground. Of course,
Yep.
I'll keep you updated
That
as
would
usual
be-
on all of the developments.
I feel like if that happened, you're definitely under like big war because that's too much.
But for now, we gotta move on. And then, moving away from the Middle East, but sticking with the US military, because despite all that they're doing in the Middle East, they are now doing side quests in South America
What?
as well. So we're just learning that the US has now launched an anti-drug trafficking military operation in Ecuador in collaboration with their government. That's a lot of countries that they're...
Wait,
It's been a
nah. Surely the US is just bored at this point. What? Why?
busy 26, man. Now, we don't have a lot of details yet, apart from just the fact that the US Southern Command posted on X saying, "Together we are taking decisive action to confront narco-terrorists who have been long inflicting terror, violence, and corruption on citizens throughout the hemisphere." However, the Ecuador Defense Ministry said that the details of this offensive operation were classified, so we don't know a lot. Ecuador's president, Daniel Noboa, announced a new phase of the country's war on drug cartels. They state that a staggering 70% of the world's cocaine now flows through Ecuador's ports. Now, of course, we've seen that Trump has offered military support to other countries like Mexico to, you know, take out their cartels. So this is probably something that is being offered to Ecuador by the United States, and they've accepted. But that is all the updates that we have for the Middle East. We've got one more story that I thought was just so interesting that it had to be thrown into this. Moving on. So, a very consequential update for the entire AI industry
copyright.
was announced today. AI-generated art, content, and material in general without significant human creative input cannot be copyrighted, at least for now.
What
And
does
the
that mean?
implications for that is going to be very interesting to see. And this all actually started with a computer scientist named Stefan Thaler. He is a United States citizen and he's been trying to get his digital artwork copyrighted, which he's obviously created using AI. Now, what's interesting about this is that he even used his own AI technology, which he has called Dabus,
Okay.
to generate this image. Now, I guess because he created his own AI and he created this, he was like, right, let's get this copyrighted. However, in 2022, that was denied. But guess what? He didn't give up. He's been contesting this ever since, but the lower courts upheld this decision because they, quote, it did not have a human creator. Now, if you're wondering, the current US Copyright Office stance on this is that works created with AI assistance can only be trademarked if there is, quote, sufficient human creative input. And for this one, they felt like that wasn't the case, which is very interesting because most people are just using, ChatGPT, Nano Banana, whatever it might be. So if even this didn't have enough human creative input, then I think they're kind of screwed. Now, Thaler was not giving up, and he took this all the way to the United States Supreme Court. But on Monday, they actually declined to even hear the case. Now, that sets a huge precedent for future legal action and cases like this. So for the foreseeable future, it's looking like it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to copyright your AI-generated material. And if you can't copyright something...
if you're copyrighting AI-generated material, then that's just dumb. Unless there's clear proof that you did actually put a lot of effort into generating that and specific type of prompts you trained the AI to do that. That's creativity. But it's just dumb.
Then you don't own it, technically. And if you don't own something, that makes it a lot harder to monetize. And that reduces the incentive to create these things. I mean, if it has no owner, then the AI, which has taken inspiration from pretty much everything to create this, now we all own it, right? So let's say you generate something like music or whatever it might be that is so good that even people wanted to buy it. Well, how long does that last before someone else looks at that and said, all right, let's just run that through a prompt and create the same thing and start selling it as well? You can't go to them and say, hey, that was my idea. No. That's everyone's idea now. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of developments. I don't think that this is where it stands for many years because AI is rapidly developing. It's going to be changing a lot of stuff. So too will the laws have to rapidly develop. But let me know what you guys think. Should there be copyright on AI-generated work? Should there not be copyright? Let me know your thoughts in the comments as always. But I think that is a wrap.
I think there should be copyright laws if you can prove that you used AI, but you also had creativity. And in terms of music and shit, you took help of AI. That should be allowed. If it's fully AI, that is a bit dumb. Good video though, still a good video.